Hey guys, Canon recently gave me the 85 1.4 image stabilized lens to have a play with, and I put it through its paces. I tried a bunch of tests on it, and I thought I'd just run you through how I test out a lens and see if it's the right kind of match for what I'm doing, for what I'm interested in. First things first, I like to put it through a nice focusing test, and just to see what the focus speed is like, what the accuracy of the focus is. So what I'd try and do is I'd go in a nice lighting situation, and I would get somebody to walk towards me, straight directly towards the camera. I'd set the focusing point on their face or their eye if I can get it that accurate, and get them to walk towards me and just keep focusing as they keep walking towards me, and then see at the end how many of those shots are in focus and how many shots of that it's missed. So I would usually shoot it at pretty near its lowest f-stop. With this I actually went to 1.4 because the sharpness is pretty amazing. We'll jump into Lightroom here. That first one's really sharp. That second one so far looks pretty sharp. That third image missed just a tiny bit. That f1.4 makes it really hard to nail it 100%, but it was close to in focus. So I zoom in really fast so that I can get an accurate measure because my eyes aren't quite that good. One thing to remember while you're doing this is that you got to make sure the lens is actually going to be calibrated to your camera, because a few of the lenses I've tried have needed a bit of in-camera calibration. But this lens was actually pretty good right off the bat. So that's the focusing test. Seeing how reliable it is when you got a subject moving towards you. Realistically, I'd probably stop it down to at least f1.8, probably more like 2.2 if I was having a subject walk towards me. That way, if it's the tiniest bit out of 100% focus, those eyes are still going to be pretty damn sharp. Next up, I will do a sharpness test, and that is not just taking a photo of somebody and looking at how sharp it is, because generally the center of the subject is going to be way sharper than the perimeters of your image. So normally I'd find a subject with a lot of texture, and I'd take a photo of it and scroll right to the very edge at 100% to see what parts of the image are a bit soft and what are razor sharp. Unfortunately, the test shot I did with this I ended up deleting, but I'll show you what I mean with a different lens, the 24mm. Zooming into the center, you can see it's razor sharp. You've got a lot of cropping power in that. But as you come out to the corners here, you can just see it's pretty good, but a little bit of softness in these corners. But on the 85 that I tested, at 1.4, it was actually very impressive. Only the very edges of the image were a little bit soft. The rest was pretty razor sharp. And by the time you stopped it down to f1.8, almost the entire image was really sharp. So I was crazy impressed with the sharpness of that lens. The one thing about sharpness is that so many people are talking about needing a camera with a huge amount of megapixels so that you can crop, but I've found that really one of the biggest factors is how sharp your lens is. Because if you've got a camera that has 50 megapixels but you've got a lens that isn't 100% sharp, then you can't crop in far at all. But a lens such as this 85 has enormous cropping ability. I'll pull up this image here. As you can see, this is pretty dang razor sharp. And then when I go into the crop, we have cropped in a huge amount here, and you still get insane detail. I would call this 100% a usable photo, even though it's cropped in as far as it is now. But a lot of the lenses I've used, you just couldn't do that. They just wouldn't be sharp enough. The quality would look terrible. Oh, and this image I just showed you, this was actually shot at f1.4. There are not a lot of lenses that I would consistently be happy with the results it gets at its lowest f-stop, but this lens is a frickin' beast, and the sharpness is unreal even at its lowest aperture. So that is something that is hugely important for me when I'm buying a lens. A few other minor things that I think about when I'm buying a lens is things like chromatic aberration. I've noticed with this lens there is a tiny bit of purple fringing, and the other thing is backlighting. Now this is one area the lens isn't too great at, but then I don't know a lot of lenses such as the 70-200 is also terrible at this. It is just quite hazy, not a lot of contrast when you're shooting straight bang into the sun. So that's just one thing to think about. You might want to shoot a lot of your stuff from slightly side on, so you're not shooting directly into that sunlight. With a bit of work you can pull out some of that detail, but it's still, it does require a bit more work. So probably one of the most important factors you're looking at when you're buying a new lens is how much you're actually going to use it. So for this reason I like to take it out on a real life test. I shot a wedding a couple of weeks ago, and I just added the 85 to my kit for that, and now after I've done the cull for that wedding I'm able to go into metadata and check exactly how many of those photos I actually ended up using after my cull. I was actually quite surprised. I love my 35mm lens, and normally that would be the majority of my shots, and of the selects I used, the 85mm lens, I chose 234 of those images, which was the highest number of all of my lenses, followed by the 35mm lens, which I used 184 images. So for me, in a wedding day scenario, this lens is amazing. This is a lens which would get the primary most amount of use. So when I think about that, I think about the price you pay for it versus the amount of use. If I'm using this lens more than any other lens, then it's really something worth looking at investing in. And that's just something you got to weigh up. I mean, sure, it'd be ideal to have the most expensive lens in every range, but realistically we can't all afford that, so we want to look at investing in the lenses which benefit us most. We're going to use that the most, so using it in a real life situation and seeing how much you actually get use out of it is awesome. Anyway, this 85mm lens, I can definitely see myself investing in it. It's a beautiful lens, and thank you Canon for lending this out to me. It's been amazing. Oh, the other thing about this lens, the image stabilization is really, really amazing. I shot a few clips of video with it, and it's really, really smooth. I found the 100mm can be a little bit jumpy with the stabilization, and this 85 is just silky smooth. So for video use, it's an amazing focal length as well. Really nice shallow depth of field, and the background blur is just beautiful. But yeah, I think that's about it. Sure. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.